I'm carrying too much. Expect that to occur a lot. I'm always going to be carrying too much. Eventually you do get additional slots for your inventory, so hopefully I won't be doing that for too long, because I'm really dissatisfied with the lack of inventory space. Of course, it also adds a little bit of strategy to the game, and it gives you a reason to track down hidden items, hidden areas, optional areas, treasure chests, all that stuff. The poison shroom is another trap. It causes poison status on any enemies that eat it, so it has its uses. Of course, a lot of enemies are fairly immune to poison, and poison takes a little while to take effect, so you know, your mileage may vary on the whole thing. There's rust armor. Remember how I mentioned that those rust phages use an attack that lowers your resistance? That's that ability right there. Right now it's not really useful for general stuff, but you're probably going to see it at some point, especially if I get involved in certain boss fights, because lowering a boss's defense and then attacking it a bunch of times is pretty good. Not a lot of the bosses in this game are really completely immune to various statuses, so you can lower stats and all that stuff, which is very nice. I don't like it when games make bosses immune to everything, especially because a lot of these abilities that alter statuses, they're underutilized anyway. I mean, how many games have you gotten through where you barely ever touched a stat altering skill? Have you ever used a sleep spell on an enemy? I'm sure quite a few of you have never done that. Okay, here's the, I forget what the fuck these things are called. Wait, hotchis? Am I thinking that right? I'm probably not. This was another thing that I'm laughing to death. At least I really hope I'm remembering that right. If I'm not, my apologies. But, yeah, he also pointed this out. If you use fire attacks on those enemies, it'll increase their flavor and they drop a better healing item. I didn't fight them in battle because, well, they are stat-causing enemies, so they can cause confusion and all this stuff. So they're a little bit annoying to deal with that way. I prefer to just take them out. It's probably not the best way to do things, because you can get some really decent healing items even from the small ones. But, yeah, I'm not quite doing that. I don't think I'm quite so poorly off to need to really utilize that. At least not right now. Sometime soon, maybe. But not right now. But I will use it on this big one here, which is right next to this sleeping enemy. Here you're going to notice the message pop up. AUGH. Yes, Haichi. That's their name. I didn't realize what the fuck your name is. And I also totally forgot how to scan enemies, so fortunately people catch my mistakes and point shit out to me, which is good because I tend to forget a lot of stuff. And fuck reading a manual, fuck reading a guide. I'm just going to, you know, fly by the seat of my pants. Hopefully it'll all work out. Of course, it's a hard game, and it's very confusing. And bad shit happens if you're not properly prepared. Game overs are a fairly common occurrence in this game. I might be making things look somewhat easy, but trust me, there are a lot of ways things can go horribly, horribly bad. Only some serious luck and a little bit of preparation saved me from getting a game over a little ways back. And situations like that are commonplace. I'm trying to figure out how to deal with this guy right here. I'm trying to figure out whether or not I should set down a trap and what traps I have, or whether or not I can just sneak past him. I eventually decided to just take a preemptive strike with Nina and zap him a bunch of times, hopefully weakening his armor, and tried to keep her out of range. She can take one hit from him without problems, which is good because he has really, really long reach, and he can pierce through enemies. This guy happens to have a really useful item if you have the steel skill equipped. So the really useful items in this dungeon that you should consider stealing. There's the Flare skill, which you get from that set of brutes. I think it's a brute mage. I could be wrong. But it's the 4 that's grouped together. You saw quite a while back where I actually got that. And from this guy, he drops counter. At least, I'm not sure if this one drops it, but a bunch of them do. So consider picking that up. It's a pretty useful skill. I don't really have it equipped a lot, mostly because I don't like giving enemies the opportunity to attack me in the first place. And for the most part, I prefer steel, since I like to get a lot of skills and a lot of items and that sort of thing. But it does have the juices, and there are times where it's pretty recommendable to use it. It never hurts to have. It never hurts to have, really. It's always good to have additional skills, even if you're not using them, since there are a few instances where a strategy change could be useful. It's that kind of game. It's all about the strategy. It's not about grinding. Don't go back and kill enemies for several hours. All you're going to do is make the game harder on yourself. You're going to drive your counter through the roof. It's not really all that useful. If you're getting like completely slammed around by an enemy, start setting traps. Figure out a new strategy besides running in and pounding it with your sword over and over and hopefully getting through. Start using some, different items like range boost or attack boost, all that stuff. Power boost, rather. Pick up some stuff like that. Heal between turns. Think stuff through. This isn't one of those games where you want to go back and grind a lot. Which brings me to another various rant, really. A lot of people bitch on JRPGs a lot for being extremely grind heavy, and I'm just really not seeing it. I play like a shitload of JRPGs. They're probably one of my most played genres, for that matter. And yeah, I'm not really seeing the need to grind. For the most part, if you're grinding in one of these games, chances are you're so fucking horrible at it that you shouldn't really be playing it in the first place. They're really simple games. Just, think things through. I kind of blame some various series for that. The Final Fantasy series, I know I fucking rag on them way too much. I actually am a fan. I like their series. 12 was awesome. 13 was good. Even the bad ones I like. So, get off me. But, yeah, a lot of the strategy in those games pretty much consists of hit it with your sword until it dies. And because of that, a lot of people seem to get the idea that that's a viable alternative in every single game. So then they start bitching when they can't do that, and they think they have to go back and kill enemies for like next to no experience points whatsoever, just so they can take on, the next boss really easily. They aren't used to using items, they aren't used to using magic, thinking things through, using some strategies, using the tricks of the game engine. Instead, it's just, hit with your sword until it dies. That's not a good way to play the games, and I don't know. Games aren't really that grind heavy. If you're hearing the excuse grind fest, it's probably just somebody that's really shitty at the game bitching about how he can't get through the game without killing billions of enemies, because he doesn't know shit about playing games. Yeah, I'm being very fucking aggressive tonight. That's just the way it's going. I mean, there are certainly games that are like that, where it's really built up around the idea that you have to go back and, grind. You have to get certain items, you have to craft this or craft that. And, I see options and stuff like that where, yeah, it's true. It's true, there are games like that, but the bulk of them aren't just, grind. It's, I don't know, it's just a really stupid thing to say. Because there's a lot to these games besides just that. I mean, I realize that I'm pretty much just mindlessly attacking the same 2 or 3 enemies, but the thing is that these enemies could very well kill me if things went that way. Even though I'm pretty much fighting similar enemies and all that stuff, I'm actually having to, work out a strategy or figure something out. And I'm just killing these things because they're sort of in my way. This is more or less no different from killing down, 101 of the same soldier in every first-person shooter, or, all the various enemies in whatever action game, 3D action game. I mean, how many, I don't know, skeleton soldiers did you kill in God of War? How many nameless, faceless soldiers did you kill in that last first-person shooter you were playing? Yeah, sure, I love those games too, of course, right? But, it's the same basic idea. This game throws a bunch of enemies at you and you have to kill them, because otherwise you'd just be fighting bosses the entire time. It'd be kind of cool to play an RPG that's nothing but boss fights. Is there any that are like that? I can't seem to recall any offhand. If there are, point them out. It'd be kind of interesting to play something like that, but, yeah. So really, it might be a repetitive task to kill a bunch of these enemies, and if that's sort of your excuse for this thing being boring, well, yeah, I guess I can kind of see that, but, you kind of do that in a lot of games. And there's always a little bit of kind of challenge there. If one of these enemies snuck up on me, they could easily take out a party member or something nasty like that. Especially some of the really big ones. And they can't just pack the game full of really powerful enemies, because that would be kind of cheap, and it just really would fuck with the difficulty level. Because then all it takes is one enemy to catch you off guard, and suddenly you're completely thoroughly fucked. I have no fucking idea where I'm going with this. So, yeah, if I sound like I'm just rambling about absolutely nothing in particular, that's because I kind of am. Yeah. So, let's see. What else could I possibly ramble about? God, I think I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel for topics. Nothing's just randomly coming to me, so I might just, I don't know, talk about whatever's going on in this game, and then if something randomly comes to me, that'll be that. Yeah. So, let's see. Well, this is a PS2 RPG. A lot of people tend to have different opinions of where games were sort of extremely good. When it comes to RPGs, I think that the absolute high point was definitely the PS2 era. There's just a lot of RPGs, there's a lot of really interesting concepts. Some of my favorite RPGs really came out on the PS2. And there's plenty of room for really experimental and unusual RPGs. I mean, you have shit like this. This game is really out there for the Breath of Fire series. Breath of Fire series really plays it safe for the most part, and this is really, really out there for them. And then you have, the return of the Persona series, which really improved upon a lot of things. You have the Xenosaga series. Some of the better Final Fantasies. Yeah, I'm probably going to get torn a new one for that, but, yeah, fuck it. The old ones are overrated. Whine more, bitches. Yeah, there's plenty of decent games out there on the PS2. I consider it probably one of the best consoles overall. I'm sure there's a bunch of Super Nintendo fanboys that are currently flaming at the ears. But it's true, the games are much better, they're much more playable. I'd take a bad PS2 game over a bad Super Nintendo game any day of the week. And I'd take a good one over a good one on the same system. Pretty much. Well, I'm not sure any day, but because I do occasionally get into a sort of old school feel. And the PS2 doesn't really provide a whole lot of 2D platformers or simple beat-em-ups. The beat-em-ups on the PS2 are fucking terrible. Well, alright, not quite terrible. There's some certainly good ones, but yeah, the whole 2D beat-em-up thing doesn't really work quite so well, and the 3D ones, unless you're playing sort of the hack and slash 3D stuff, yeah. Okay, that right there was a little bit confusing what I was doing. I was trying to get the other enemy out of this guy's range, You get bonus points if you fight multiple enemies at the same time. But with a fight like this, I wanted to take them on individually, so I was just using bait to lure them around. Positioning the enemies can be very important in this game. So getting a real feel for that and figuring out how you're supposed to do that can really make things a lot easier for you. Again, that's also why I recommend having Kick with you as much as possible. And why Out of the Way is probably one of the most used Lin skills once you get into certain enemy types. It's just good. And it's a push attack from the other side of the screen. How can you possibly say no to that? I am mildly saddened by the lack of brunettes in our party. I just noticed that. We have a blonde and a redhead, but no brunette. Except Ryu. Although, that could be the start of a really nasty joke. So a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead walk into a subterranean complex. And then people die. Yeah. Leveling up. Very good spot for experience points. I'm noticing that they don't actually show the level here. I don't quite know why. But levels are probably 14, 15, somewhere in that neighborhood. You can't really hit extremely high levels in this game because of the lack of enemies and because it's just not really time effective or cost effective to really attack a lot of enemies that way. So, you know, you're probably going to finish the game in high 40s, maybe. Probably mid 30s, depending on how complete it is and how much optional fighting you're doing, how much party experience points you're getting, and which dungeon layouts you're getting as well. Since the dungeon layouts are semi-random, so sometimes you'll get like a really powerful enemy that gives a lot of experience points, other times you'll get something that's considerably easier to deal with. Fortunately, I've been doing somewhat well here. I haven't really been fighting anything too troublesome. And of course, I pick up a backpack just after I throw away an item I could have used. Oh god, the rage. The fucking rage. Does it ever end? No, it does not. Fucking rage forever. Alright, taking this elevator up, and I believe... Ah, yes, storyline sequence. Damn it! Bosch, calm down. D ratios measure potential future ability profiles. Your losing to him is within acceptable error margins. Aberrations? That was no aberration. That was... He's a monster. Anyway, as for you, you're being relieved of further duty. No! I followed my orders, didn't I? Didn't I? I can't let this incident spoil my reputation. Access. I totally should have been a voice actor. Missed opportunities. Ah yes, and here we have our requisite shadowy secret organization. A regent assembly at this time? It's too soon. Pause. This day was foreseen, but not the date. Blue balls. And it's the game's logo. How coincidental. A dragon has come. A dragon? Yes. One of the great weapons of old. Our nemesis, the destroyers of worlds. Biocore reports that one that activated is one which cycle had already ended. Reactivation? But the hosts, the Chosen, are supposed to be extinct. A ranger grunt, a boy named Ryu, may have linked with the dragon. A grunt? No one with such low potential could be a Chosen. I will create a rift in space and seal it away before it sends the world into turmoil. It is not yet time for us to act. Let mortals deal with mortals. I have ordered all high-ranking rangers to find the boy. We feud in life and struggle towards death. It is sometimes the history not found in books that is the truest. Here, now, it begins. Yep, definitely should have been a voice actor. Okay, not really. I'm fucking terrible at that. But it's passable, I guess, and it helps for the people too lazy to read it on their own. So I'm going to continue doing it. This area should look a little bit familiar. This is right next to the start of the game. The elevator's working now. Don't break it. If only I had a higher D ratio, I could take the boy to a higher level. Clean air. Cough, cough. Of course he says the same thing. Even if I'm become a ranger, I'd only be a grub with low D ratio. Life can be so cruel. Wow, I scrolled through that text really quick. It's NPC dialogue, it's not all that important. And we got our nice little town here so we can take a look at some items. Thor hammer. Yeah, 3 guesses as to what that involves. A +2 light suit, which means we can now effectively get rid of our +1 or +0 alternatives of these weapons and items. Which is good because they're worth a lot of Zenny. And I mean a lot of Zenny. Look at this stuff. I just gained like 1500 Zenny right there just from heavy suits. Damn. And taking a little look at the stats here. It has Jolt Ball as a default ability. So I can set Flame to it in the additional slot and have a pretty decent alternative to the Pyromaniac staff in case I run into a situation where that really calls for it. So that's decent, I guess. Of course, I'm probably not going to set that because I completely fucking forgot about it. Yeah. I'm trying to get through somewhat fast. And storing the trauma kits in reserve. They're really, really powerful healing items, so they're not really the sort of thing that you should waste inventory slots on now because you're not going to really use them right now. Soon, and you know, if you hit a certain area, and constantly increasing Mina's health just because she tends to take hits sometimes and she has really, really lousy health. It might just be 1 point, and over the course of the game I probably added like 3 or 4 HP to her. So close that protogenics are sold on the market. Huh? Oh, right, we're so close to Biocore. Pathway is now open. If you have business at the Biocore Labs, go on through. Hiya, this is the item shop. Okay, as usual, at an item shop, it's a good idea to stock up on healing kits and to sell any Zenny items, because that's really all they're good for. That would be our Zenny purses and our louse. And hopefully that takes care of everything. And since we now have an additional page, that means I can start buying some really nice items here. And worrying a bit less about my carrying capacity. Again, when it comes to heal kits, kind of think of it a little bit as sort of Diablo or something like that. You leave loaded down with potions, you come back loaded down with loot. If it works out right, that's how it should go. I was really eyeing that tonic because I kind of need one, but it's really expensive, so I decided not to go for it. And that's really, really going to cost me. I'm not sure whether or not I should leave that in. I probably should, just because it'll show. Probably some straight Janik found a way in again. I wonder if it's true that there was a big battle at the bottom of the flow sector. And here's our first telecoder save since before the boss battle. And, of course, it's automatically set to no. So, me being stupid, I just keep mashing the X button. So, it takes a couple seconds. Okay, level 12. So, that would mean Nina's about level 11, and Lynn should be about level 12. Probably high level 11 at lowest. Okay, I'm going to take a little look through here. Actually, I think I'll cut the video off here. Fuck you all and good night.